Good afternoon, friends. This is State Representative Bill Zedler here with the Zedler Report. And today we're going to talk to you about why are all these illegal immigrants coming to America? Why are these unaccompanied minors coming to America? You're going to hear one scenario is it's because they're fleeing violence, and so therefore they need to be treated as in a humanitarian cause, and that in essence they need to be treated as not illegal aliens, but rather they need to be treated as people fleeing some type of problem down in the country where they're coming from. And here's the problem: the very people that are talking to these unaccompanied minors, the very people who are questioning them about why they're coming here, and we've had two of them, Chris Cabrera, who's the vice president of the National Border Patrol Council, as well as Senator Inhofe, have both said that when interviewing these children, what they're getting is that it's not that they're fleeing violence. They're coming to America because they believe that once they get here, they can stay, that they're going to get amnesty when they get here. And some of them have gone as far as to say and to ask, where do I get my medical care and my schooling and all that? President Obama is going to take care of us and make sure that we're okay. So the fact of the matter is that what we need to understand is that these children are coming here because in 2012, Barack Obama granted a number of immigrants that were already here amnesty. And that message has gone out to Central and South America, and the message is, if you can get to America, you can stay. And we all know that the borders are insecure. Therefore, they can get across. There's a good chance that if they try to get across the border, they can, and that once they're here, they can stay. So let's start dealing with some of these issues, because there's another scenario going on. And that is that some people are saying, "Look, this is the Christian thing to do. That we've got to do this." Well, my friends, let me put it this way. If we allowed every person who's been persecuted somewhere around the world to come to America, we would not have 70 or 80,000. We would have in the millions, 100, 150, 200 million people trying to get to America. And can we sustain that kind of burden on our system?
You know, I would ask a question, Bill. Is it the Christian thing to do to just invite your neighbors to come in and live in your house to the point of destruction? Or is it the Christian thing to do to go help your neighbors build their own house? I would say let's go help these other countries with the principles of freedom and prosperity and so
Exactly. I wonder how many, Josh, that's a great question. And I wonder how many people that are saying that, I wonder how many of them would put a sign out on the front of their house saying, "The door's unlocked, come here and take what you want."
Zuckerberg is not one of them.
That's right.
He's buying up the property just to make, he's like building his own little fence over there.
Right.
He's doing what the state of Texas and the United States of America should be doing across the southern border.
Exactly. And one of the reasons why that Rick Perry has called up the Guard is because there's some people are saying, well, gee, they're not going to have any law enforcement capability. Well, the fact of the matter is, what the Border Patrol is telling us, that a huge percentage of their time is spent simply processing these children who are coming here illegally.
Up to 4 hours per person.
Wow. 4 hours per person.
When you're talking about thousands of kids a day, times 4 hours, I mean, my goodness.
Exactly. And so that is the reason why Governor Perry is wanting to send the National Guard down to the border, is to make sure that they can do the job that the Border Patrol has been doing in the past, but has been unable to do because of all these unaccompanied minors. But the other thing is this. When we talk about these unaccompanied minors, a lot of us think about, well, maybe they're 8 or 9, 10 years old. Well, the fact of the matter is, no, a lot of them are a whole lot older. In fact, Josh, would you put the screen, the picture up on the screen? My friends, these are some of the poor children that are coming to America from Central and South America. Now, do those pictures look like someone who would have difficulty getting here? Look at that. And you know why? Well, a lot of these people are MS-13 gang members. And the fact is that some of these gang members are, once they get here to America, now we found out that they're in essence using the Red Cross headquarters to communicate back to people in Mexico and Central and South America, their fellow gang members, telling them what to say and that kind of thing.
Recruiting them for the gangs
exactly.
once they get here. And I don't know if it's the headquarters, but what I've read online is that they're using the Red Cross phone banks there, and I guess it's inside the detention centers. But
yeah,
I mean, so when you talk about them escaping violence, I guess the people that are escaping violence are the ones that are staying in the country because all their criminals are coming up here.
Exactly. I think that's what we got to look at and see. Let's get a real picture of what's going on down at the border, why they're coming, and so it can give us a better understanding of what we can do to deal with this crisis. Because one of the things that we're hearing over and over again by some people is, well, we've got to do something. Well, we can't send these poor children back to the violence that they came from. Now, here's the problem with that, my friends. If you say that, oh, once you get here, you can stay, now what do you think that says to the people who are still down in Central and South America? Do you think they'll say, well, wait a minute, my friend has gone to America. They've told him or her that once they're there, boy, they're treating them very well, and they've told them that they can stay. Gee, I think I may try the journey. Now, here's the problem, my friends, is that what is happening to a lot of these minors on the way to getting here? Well, I'll tell you what's happened to them. A lot of them are being abused, a lot of them are dying, and a lot of the women are being raped. Josh, what percentage of the women were being raped along the way?
The numbers we're getting is that a third of the young girls coming over here are being raped along the way.
A third of the young girls coming here are being raped. Let me ask you this. Does that sound like an act of kindness to you?
Is that the Christian thing to do?
Yeah. That in essence, to send the message down there that if you come here, you can stay. In fact, Chris Cabrera, the president of the National Border Patrol Council, said there's only one thing that will stop this problem. And that is this. We have to adopt a policy of, first and foremost, 100% retention. In other words, if you get here, you will be held by authorities and you will not be released. We will stop the catch and release program. The second thing is this, that if you get here, you will be returned back to your country of origin. Now, here's the thing. If some people in that category are sincerely being targeted by some group down in Central and South America, maybe they're being targeted by a drug gang down in Central or South America, there is a solution. They can then, after being returned to their country of origin, they can then go to the U.S. Embassy in that particular country, and they can then ask for asylum based on those facts. But what we have to stop, my friends, is thinking that if you get here, you're going to get asylum while you're here. That needs to stop. That will, in essence, stop encouragement of people who are not being targeted. The other thing is is the only thing that will stop this abuse of minors on the way. The other thing, that is the only thing that will stop these young women from being raped as they come here. The final thing is this. I've talked to law enforcement here locally, and they have told me that up to a quarter of the prostitution that is going on in the Dallas-Fort Worth area is from people who are being brought here illegally, who are being transported across the border to be used in the sex trade. the fact is that we are, in essence, the only thing that will stop that is A, securing the borders. And here's the other thing. What kind of, you see, that's the main thing that the media is focusing in on. The main thing that the media is focusing in on, all these unaccompanied minors. That plays on people's heartstrings and that kind of thing. And in essence, that's the message they want to get out. But here's the problem. Only about 20% of the illegal immigration crossings are by these unaccompanied minors. What else is coming with them? Wow. Well, about 85% of the people who are coming across now are what they call OTMs. They are other than Mexicans.
You have got to be kidding me.
Exactly.
85% of those coming over are OTMs.
Exactly. And now, so a lot of people say, well, okay, where is that? Well, that's not just from Guatemala. That's not just from El Salvador. You know that when you look at the total number, a huge portion of that are now coming from China. A lot of people are coming from Sudan, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, all these other places around the world. Many of them are enemies of the United States.
What a disgrace for the memory of those victims of 9/11. Didn't we give our word that we would not forget?
Exactly. Exactly.
You know, Bill, I'm looking at the article here. One of the things that Cabrera says is that when they're processing these kids, these folks coming over here, they're not even getting any biometric measurements, no fingerprints, nothing. Then they're released into society, and we have no way of tracking them whatsoever.
Oh,
so if that's happening for them, is that happening for the OTMs as well?
Well, not only that, Josh, but very often when they're released by the Border Patrol on their catch and release program, when they're released, they're given simply paperwork that then they can use that same paperwork that has no ID, that no photo ID, that could be easily copied. They're simply given that paperwork, and the security agents at the airports are told to accept that paperwork if they want to get on a plane and fly to somewhere else in the United States.
So they're groping grandma, but the guy who comes here illegally can just jump on the plane without flashing any ID whatsoever.
That's exactly right. In essence, they're given more leeway than a U.S. citizen or that someone who is here legally.
We've got part of that interview with Chris Cabrera. Do you want me to?
Absolutely. Why don't you put that on?
All righty.
If you were in my shoes, what would you like to see done to help you facilitate your job?
I think what needs to be done is 100% detention, 100% removal. You can put all the public service announcements in the world out. If you don't follow it up with actions, it doesn't matter. Once the message gets out that if you come, you will be returned, then it'll stop. And we know it'll stop because we've seen it happen in the past. And regardless of what side of the immigration debate you fall on, whether it's removal, detention, keep them here, let them go, the end result is these children are being put in danger. And a lot of that danger is coming at our hands because we're putting that message forward by our actions that if you come, we'll release you. So they're willing to take that dangerous journey. And it's not necessarily the kid willing to take that dangerous journey. It's the parent willing to send the child on the dangerous journey. You know, they have to have some tie to the United States in order for us to release them to somebody in the United States. We just can't release, say, a 14-year-old or a 12-year-old on his own or her own. But the checks going into determining how close of a relative, or if in fact it is a relative, to me, it just doesn't seem like it's enough. And we have no way of verifying, you know, that this is the child's father or mother that's coming in. And as a Border Patrol agent, we never even see this other person, this mother, this father. They get picked up somewhere along down the line.
So they could actually theoretically have one person work on this side of the border, another one working on this side, and there actually could be in transit as forced sex labor. We would never know.
And I think that's very probable. I mean, I would say that that's probably happening. Maybe not large scale. Who knows? Maybe it is large scale.
Who knows? Maybe it is large scale.
Exactly. Well, the thing about it is, this is what's going on when now we find out that they're releasing these children to some adult here in the country with very little evidence as to how they're related to the child, if they are related at all. The fact of the matter is, here's the thing. If you have a child who is in Child Protective Services, they examine the family that they're putting that child into, sideways, in and out, everything. But here you have these unaccompanied minors that are being brought into America, and the Obama administration is following a policy where these children are released into the hands of adults that we're not even sure who they are, how they're related, whether they're involved in the sex trade or not. And that's why this has got to stop. The other thing is we've got to stop all this secrecy in moving these children around, not knowing who's being sent where, and that kind of thing.
And that is an orchestrated event right there.
Exactly.
They have said we're not going to use the buses anymore. Now we're going to use vans and caravans, because there's more than one van, and because they know that 77% of Americans want them sent back to their parents.
Right. Exactly.
Whenever they had the child, it was their responsibility to raise that child, not some folks in a foreign land to provide entitlements for.
Exactly.
You know, the other thing, I would point out here is that Cabrera, in case our viewers missed it, he said 100% detention and 100% removal solves the problem. Because what happens is the message gets spread out across the population. Don't make the journey. Don't waste your time. Don't make the trip. Don't take the risk, because they're going to send you back anyway.
Exactly. And here's the other thing. We've talked about how dangerous it is for these children to come up here. A lot of the women being sexually assaulted. Why? Because who is transporting these young children up here? Well, it's the people who are involved in the drug industry.
It's not Joseph and Mary.
Exactly. Yeah, like Nancy Pelosi believing that that little Jesus was like one of these children. No, I beg your pardon. The fact is that this idea that somehow we've got to do this because it is the Christian thing to do is, my friends, I keep hearing this a lot, and I always like to ask them, show me where in the Bible where it says, tax from thy brother to give to another. It doesn't exist. You're right?
Your ethnic dialect.
Yeah,
really
how you like
work,
that?
Bill. We need to get Eugene or Pastor Broden in here to help you out with that.
That's right. It doesn't say that. It says you leave the corners of your field.
Right.
There were two entities that were always required or encouraged to be charitable in Scripture. One was the individual, and the other was the church. Mm-hmm. It was never the government. It has never been the policy or implied in Scripture that we are to tax individuals in order to give to a cause like this. And you know what? When we have done this in America, like for instance, right now we have at John Peter Smith or Parkland, we have charitable deals. But you know what? That has been voted on by the taxpayers of the county that facility is in. I don't recall anybody asking us for our vote on whether we should allow all these unaccompanied minors in or whether we should have insecure borders. In fact, in 1986, when we passed Simpson-Mazzoli, we were told that our borders would be secured.
Right.
The final thing is this. How many of y'all are aware out in Parker County, there was a little girl that was molested? And when they caught the person responsible for molesting the little girl, they found that individual had already been deported 4 previous times.
And Bill, this is not, that's a common thing, because the average number of times that an illegal is deported if they've been arrested one time is 8 times.
Exactly. Does that sound like our borders are secure? Let me give you a few more facts about some of these other people that are coming across. in the last 5 years, in the jails of the state of Texas, or not the cities, the counties, and that kind of thing, there have been over 200,000 illegal aliens booked for committing various crimes. Among those crimes, they had 3,000 murders and 8,000 sexual assaults. In the last 7 years, there have been over 600,000 crimes committed against Texans by people who have violated our immigration laws. Here's the question. Isn't it time to secure our borders? The fact is, one of the things I was watching this Sunday, the morning show was the Fox News with Chris Wallace. Mm-hmm. And he kept asking the Republicans, well, are you going to stay here in order to resolve this issue on immigration? And, of course, he was trying to basically say, you know what, the president is leading this deal, and the president's not here. How do we get something done without him? And of course, he's very right. But here's the question. Does the president need Congress to do anything in order for him to secure our borders? And the answer is no. The president can secure our borders right now if only he was willing to act. That is the one thing that at the stroke of the pen he could do right now.
Well, he's writing an executive order.
Yes.
To grant amnesty to up to 5 million illegals that are already here.
Exactly.
So
he's willing to do an executive order to grant amnesty, to spend the money to grant amnesty to all the illegal aliens that are here, but he's unwilling to sign an executive order to secure our borders.
And here's one of the things, one of the lessons we learned from the 1986 amnesty, where we granted amnesty to 3 million people, is it ballooned up to now they're telling us we have 12 million people, but they really don't even know what that number is.
Exactly.
So it was a magnet. If they were to grant amnesty, like Obama is getting ready to do with his executive order, he's got a pen and he's got a telephone. He can do whatever he wants to. If Congress isn't willing to act, he's going to act as a dictator and king and get the job done. Resupply that Democratic voter base. If we grant amnesty, and let's just say it's 12 million, in another 20 years from now, if we follow these same percentages, I mean, we're talking about 4 times as many now as we granted in 86.
Exactly.
You're talking about 50 million illegal immigrants coming into the United States of America. Folks, if we go back to the house analogy, we don't have that many rooms in our house.
Exactly.
Let's develop the free market system in their country and help them build their own house.
You know, and Josh, let me address another myth, because one of the other myths is that, well, you know what, we've got to do something so that the Republican Party can placate and get in good with the Hispanic community. Let me address a few of those myths. Yeah. If that is true, why was it that after Ronald Reagan signed Simpson-Mazzoli in 1986, why was it in the very next election cycle that the percentage of Hispanics voting for Republicans went down?
Yeah.
If that was true, why was it that Phil Graham, the senator from the state of Texas, the year he voted that bill went up, he voted against Simpson-Mazzoli. And do you know what? His percentages of Hispanics voting for Phil Graham went up. The other thing is this. If that is true, why is it that right now the favorability rating among the Hispanic community for Barack Obama is going through the floor? If that premise is true, that he's granted all this amnesty to all these illegal aliens, that somehow that will pull the Hispanic community into his camp, his approval rating in the Hispanic community ought to be going through the roof. Mm-hmm. But it has not. It has gone through the floor. And maybe that's because the Hispanic community knows that the more illegal aliens who come to this country, whose job does
Right.
it put at risk?
And I think, too, there's this myth that, let me close this up here. There's this myth that if you're Hispanic, then your country of identification is going to be Mexico or a South American country. Well, that's not true. And
Right.
especially not true here in the state of Texas.
Exactly.
Many Hispanics, their country of identity and association is the United States of America. And
Right.
what is that stigma? They don't want that stigma being placed on them that they're one of the illegals coming over.
Exactly.
And exactly. We talk about the economic issues and also the freedom. Listen, they came over legally to escape a lot of that stuff. A lot of them are natural-born citizens here in the United States going back generations. We especially
Exactly.
see that here in the state of Texas.
Exactly.
And what I'm hearing from my friends and the networks I'm involved with is that many American Hispanics are outraged over what is going on, the policies of this president and this administration.
Exactly. And you know, the final thing is this, Josh. Why don't we go back to the policies that have been tried and proven? If you go back to Ronald Reagan, do you notice that Ronald Reagan didn't play identity politics? Ronald Reagan took one message, and that message was the same for everybody. And that is that we all can prosper in America if we will go back to the principles that made this country the greatest country in the world. We will never win playing identity politics because that's what the Democrats do. What we've got to do is promote the principles that have made this country the greatest country in the world. Right. Go back to the idea and understanding that, guess what, friends? It is free enterprise that really raises everybody up. And rather than government-run top-down policies, that a small government is bigger than a big government. Why? Because the larger the government gets, the less freedom that you and I have. And guess what? Big governments require more taxes. The more taxes, that means that more taxes that you and I have to pay, that's less money that we have in the private sector. That's less money that you and I have to determine how that money's spent. And so if we go back and discuss those ideals, let me tell you something. We will win. We will win in the Hispanic community. We will win in the Asian community. We will win women. We will win African Americans. Whatever the ethnic
people want to be free and prosperous.
Exactly.
All people.
Exactly.
Bill, we've got a clip here from Senator Inhofe, and he is saying he's identifying the person who is inviting all of these illegals over here. Let's hear from him real quick.
First of all, I think we're overlooking the obvious here. I went down and talked to these kids. At that time, they had just arrived. There might have been 300 or 400. I do reasonably well speak Spanish, and I talked to them, even though they tried to keep us from doing it. These kids were here in this country at the invitation of the president. I think everyone knows it. Nobody says it. But they were down there in these countries. That means that during his DACA, the Deferred Action Childhood Arrivals, he's making it sound as if, come here, we'll take care of you. And they all believe this, Chuck. I know you don't believe it, but they do. And so these kids are all piling in. Well, no, these kids are piling into Fort Sill right now. We're understaffed down there. We're trying to rebuild a barracks. And so the commander...
He goes on to say, but the important thing there is that, we cannot be looking for President Obama to secure the border. He's not going to do it.
That's exactly right.
And, Bill, I would like to get your take on what Governor Perry's doing with our National Guard. Is that working? Can we do more?
Well, we're looking at what else we can do more than send the 1,000 members of the National Guard down there. The other thing is this, Josh. As long as they're under the governor, if they're under the president's control, then they're also under the posse comitatus rule, okay, where they cannot be involved in any type of policing activity. But if they're under the governor, there is evidence that they can. They can be used much like they used the National Guard when they had the race riots in Watts and those areas when they brought in the Guard. The fact is that as long as they're under the control of the governor. The other thing is we're looking at what other options that we do have that would put more law enforcement on the border, because I'm convinced that simply having a police presence on the border, a military presence on the border, will dramatically impact the number of people coming across. The other thing is that we'll be a lot better job of catching those people that are coming from other nations that could be coming here to do harm to America. Do you realize that Susan Combs, she has a ranch out in West Texas, and about a week ago, they found 3 Ukrainians were arrested who were trying to get across her property. So, my friends, let me tell you something. This is a crisis, and what we've got to do is focus on real solutions. In order to do that, we've got to understand the problem. And the problem is that this crisis on the border will not be stopped until, A, we have 100% retention, we have a 100% return.
No, I was just adding what you're saying. It works.
You're right.
They've
exactly.
proven it.
That's what works.
That's what Cabrera said, the president of the National Border Patrol Council.
Exactly.
He said they've done it. They've tried it. They have case studies. We know this is the solution. Listen, if this guy gets it, well, I've never heard of this guy, Chris Cabrera.
Yeah.
If he gets it, you can pretty well darn sure that Rick Perry and our legislator and the Congress and President Obama, everybody else gets it.
Because the other thing,
this is the emperor has no clothes on.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And there have been times that, in essence, like for instance, George Bush, when he was president, for a while they stopped the catch and release.
Right.
They had it where if you were apprehended, you stayed there. And they have tried that also in different segments of the border. And what they found is the more they do that, the lower the number of attempts that attempt to get across, that it is driven down significantly. I'm talking about 90%.
Oh, wow.
So,
well, Bill, we're here to the end of our show. Give us some hope. I know, I'm talking with some of the folks behind the scenes. Everybody's jacked up excited about this 84th legislative session. And we're hoping that a lot of these problems can be handled by the people, the representatives of the people of the state of Texas.
Exactly. Well, and Josh, as you know, I've spoken about this a number of times. A lot of it's going to depend on the speaker that we have.
Oh, yeah.
But the other thing is we've got to keep the people of Texas engaged in what's going on down there. Because let me tell you something. What they've saw in Arizona and other states, that when they did things like require require that if you go to work for an employer, E-Verify, that if you require E-Verify, that reduces the number of illegal aliens that are willing to come to that state because they realize they cannot get a job there. So we need to do things like that. We need to end sanctuary cities. We need to have E-Verify. We need to pass bills like that make sure that people understand that if you've come here illegally, you're going to have a tough row to hoe in order to try and find either a job or ability to stay here.
So if California and New York wants them,
exactly,
we'll give a caravan to keep
exactly.
it undercover,
exactly,
and not draw any attention to it.
In fact, we'll be more than happy to pay for them to get a first-class ticket to those areas of the country.
Closing words, Bill?
My friends, the answer to this is A, stay involved with the political process. It gets back to one old thing that I've always said. When politicians feel the heat, they see the light. And you've got to make them. We've tried to arm you with evidence so that you can articulate a message of the way to solve this border problem. God bless you, and see you next week.